Here we are. No
Have
more
we done one of these
delays.
before?
What?
Have we done like a waiting for a free agent announcement, imminent free agent announcement pod?
Huh. Imminent. Well, we've never signed any good free agents.
We've definitely waited,
Yeah.
but has it felt this close?
No, I don't think so. I think like the most, the year that the Jimmy trade and the Ben signing and the Horford signing happened, we had a bunch to talk about that day. That I remember the busiest sort of free agency day, but I don't think we've ever had anything like this.
I think last year you were on vacation during this time, Spike.
I was, because that was when we had the Harden once out opt-in thing, but I did it from vacation then, if you remember correctly. But I purposely scheduled my vacation 2 weeks later this year. The least they could have done was gotten this fucking deal done by 11 o'clock. It's so late. What are we talking about here?
2 years ago, we did it the day before free agency started.
I don't even remember.
Me neither.
I took so many notes as the day went on. This is definitely the most notes I've taken for a non-game pod.
Oh, the guy hosts a couple of podcasts. All of a sudden, he's fucking notes.
CJ gave me a compliment about my transitions, about my segues. And the
segues were good.
We actually got an email asking if you like the email was something to the effect of, I like tuning into the mic ones because I know they're going to be a mess. And he was like, did he go to like hosting school or something? He was like, he was so much better at hosting.
Oh, really?
And he said even the ad reads were better. And I was like, well,
wow.
I was like, the ad read thing might be because I instructed to read specifically the notes. But I was like, but I didn't.
No, I always read the notes and then do my own thing. I don't know. Usually it's like once every like 9 months. And I think the last one I did with John was only about a month ago or something. So it was pretty recent. Hang on, let me get a glass of water 1 second. Okay. I'm going to be talking a lot.
Yeah, you definitely seemed more loose than prior Mike hosted pods. So definitely wanted to point that out to him. Are you still getting up early tomorrow after doing this?
I get up at like 6:15 every day. So that's when I'll get up. I like getting up then. Gives me enough time to like get ready for work and take my walk, but also not rush through anything. I don't like rushing in the morning. I'd rather be a little more tired and have a little more time.
Are you good at falling asleep quickly?
Yes. I fall asleep in seconds. Especially now that I've switched jobs. My falling asleep was getting worse. My other job was one of the reasons why I knew that my stress levels were way too high, because I've always been like a quick sleeper and I had stopped being a quick sleeper. So we ready to go?
Let's do it.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is proudly presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS, and brought to you by Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process. His cell is 302-864-8643. And Kinetic Skateboarding, get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, it's free agency day. We have a couple of confirmed deals and one that we're just fucking waiting on, and it's 11 o'clock, and we thought it would be done by now, but it isn't. And we'll talk about that, free agency, all that kind of stuff. Big offseason for the Sixers. I don't know, Mike, if you've heard. We sent out a newsletter thing about this, and we only have 2 spots left. But I thought I'd mention it here. We're working with a new podcast app that is in beta right now called Cooler. And the idea on it is that you can comment like on the actual pod and talk to each other. So there's discussion on the actual pod. And it's got Twitch-like things where it shows how many you've listened to in a row. It's a fun thing, very community-based, which is why they're working with us to start it off. We have 100 spots for the beta testing, and there's like 2 left. So if you want to do it, by the way, not like to, two left. If you want to do it, we only want people who are actually going to participate. So you'll get surveys about what you like and what you don't like, and we want you to actually comment, all that kind of stuff. But if you feel like you're one of those people, go to cooler.fm and use the code LICKFACE to get the app. That is cooler.fm and use code LICKFACE. And if you missed this email, which we sent out this morning, make sure you go to rightstoRickySanchez.com and hit subscribe so you get all this stuff first. You should be subscribed. I did mention Kinetic Skateboarding. Now, not only is Kinetic the best place to get sneakers that you're not going to find anywhere else, New Balance, Converse, Nikes, Vans, all that kind of stuff. Of course, snowboards and skateboards and all the gear that we talk about all the time. But place to learn how to skateboard, that's right. Kinetic Skate Camp is 3 separate weeks this summer, June 24th to 28th. So I guess that one's over. But also July 15th to 19th and August 5th to August 9th, ages 6 to 14. Any level of skater can go and be part of Kinetic Skate Camp. It's at the 7th Street DIY Park, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. You get a free camp deck with registration. If you want to sign up or have, obviously, if you're 6 to 14, it's probably not you, but it's probably one of your kids, maybe your younger brother, younger sister. Call 302-477-1533 for sign up. Again, that's 302-477-1533. I wish I had become a good skateboarder when I was younger. Now I'm too old and frail, but if you're young, you should do it. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who still has plenty of cap space available. That is one Mike Levin.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right.
All right. So we were, you know, the time start for this pod as we're doing it live was flexible because if something big happened or didn't happen or whatever, we wanted to be able to go right as it happened. And around 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever, as it became sort of, it seemed like the Sixers were in the driver's seat for the Paul George thing, I kept pushing it back because I wanted to do the pod where we could actually celebrate, you know, and talk about it and all that kind of stuff. But it just seems like we're going to be driver's seat for the length of this podcast. So we have to do the podcast without, I know everyone wants the full like dick swinging energy, you know, we did it even though all we did was sign a free agent sort of stuff. I know that's what everybody wants, but to me, that feels a little jinxy. So I think we have to handle it as if, you know, we think it's going to happen, but we don't quite know. Does that feel right or?
Yes.
Okay.
The lay of the land at this moment, because people will listen to this at different times,
yep,
is that a few hours ago, the Clippers put out a statement.
A very long statement.
A long, weird statement saying, we love Paul. Remember these 2 games against the Jazz. And we're too far apart from signing with him because the CBA is too restrictive, and he's going to sign somewhere else, is what it said.
Yeah, the big quote here is, we negotiated with months for Paul and his representative on a contract that would make sense for both sides, and we were left far apart. The gap was significant. We understand and respect Paul's decision to look elsewhere for his next contract. We explored an opt-in and trade scenario, but would have left us in a similar position under the new CBA with very little asset value to justify the restrictions. So,
Yeah, I mean, we're just at a place where for many months we've been talking about this, where it was like, Paul George hasn't signed yet. Paul George hasn't signed yet. Paul George hasn't signed yet. They gave Kawhi, this was announced by Windhorse earlier today, where they gave Kawhi this contract and didn't talk to Paul about it months ago. And every day that Paul George did not opt in was another day closer to the deadline where he would have to make that decision. And he opted out. Yesterday he opted out.
He opted out.
Straight up opted out. He said, no thanks.
Now
you want me in? I'm out.
Now that did still give the Clippers, if Paul George was like, if they were playing chicken, it still
it seemed chickeny for a while.
It did seem, honestly, even after 6 o'clock to me, it still felt chickeny. The entire thing felt chicken. I texted you and CJ. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
we've been trained to be Negadelphian about this.
To be Negadelphian, and this entire reporting of all this stuff is so tainted and polluted with agent bullshit.
Yeah.
That like, and just to wrap that up, even though he opted out, the Clippers could still re-sign him to a deal and use bird rights and all that kind of stuff. So they could have still signed him.
And they're not. Now they're not.
It doesn't seem like it.
And Orlando goes and gets KCP and eats up most of their cap space with KCP. So they're not going to sign him.
Mm-hmm.
The Warriors were thought to be a team that could be getting him, could orchestrate a sign and trade. The Clippers said no to that, would rather let him walk. And so here we are, where the Sixers have the cap space to sign Paul George, and nobody else except for the Detroit Pistons also does. If he signs with the Pistons, that would hurt and surprise me, especially after the Pistons already maxed out Cade Cunningham. My secret number one option for this offseason. Didn't happen. Didn't work out.
Shockingly that
didn't work out.
Shockingly that an email suggesting maybe this could happen.
Sorry for listening to the emailers, Spike. Sorry for valuing the emailers that it became my pet project of this offseason.
We couldn't just will it into existence.
No, you really couldn't.
And by the way, the Pistons, I've never even seen an instance of them leaking that they're interested in Paul George.
No, I don't think that they would. Although they did sign JB Bickerstaff as a coach today. So it seems as close to a thing that is happening there. It's been announced that there's going to be a meeting at some point tonight in California. Big place.
Yep.
Big place for that meeting to happen. And the Sixers will. I mean, I think he's still meeting with the Magic. I guess there's a world. I don't want to say that there's no possibility that some team
can't meet with the Magic. I mean,
some team could still go. We are creating cap space by, in the same way that we're going to talk about B-Ball Paul being like a cap space. We can
dumping salary onto Orlando.
Exactly. So could there be somebody where that happens, where somebody comes out of the woodwork and does it? There was a random report about the Jazz being interested.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about the Jazz.
I don't know. I don't know how real that is. So we're just in a place where it seems like, as close to it only being a formality, it is a formality.
Except that if he goes somewhere else,
yes,
I'm going to have to cut my dick off on this podcast.
Yes.
On the podcast. CJ won't even be there because he's on vacation.
Yes.
Who's going to fucking upload it when I'm in the ER with blood all over my pants?
Dildo dick you'll be having. It does feel like this is as close to anything as we've ever been. And it's important to remember, Sixers have not signed major players in free agency ever. You could say that Al Horford was it. That obviously didn't work out. And then you go back to Elton Brand in 2008 when he was coming off a torn Achilles. Mm-hmm. It's not a long track record of success. It's not. It just hasn't happened. And so here we are, where we're as close to a thing that could happen as anything could happen.
But we can't celebrate.
At some point away, we can't celebrate. We're not going to celebrate. But on the 5-year anniversary of the Horford signing and signing Tobias to a big fat contract that he didn't deserve, that nobody else was bidding against them on because they're friends with his dad, and trading Jimmy to Miami for Josh Richardson. Bad memories. Maybe this will be a good memory. Maybe this will be a nice one. How do you, I mean, yes, we're not victory lapping, but like how do you feel about it now that we're at the doorstep, now that we've come to the end?
Well, it doesn't even feel like the end. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't, how does it feel? I don't know. I have been as pro Paul George signing as I could be. I've been very pro. This has been my preferred outcome over everything else. And it does seem as if they are the only team who can obtain him at this point.
Yeah.
And yet I am still terrified to explore what it feels like.
Sure. You're still too worried to talk about it.
Because if they sign him, I will be very happy. Because I feel like he is perfect. And I feel like though the Daryl Morey cap space plan that he's been working toward, obviously you would love to sign somebody who's 29 or 30,
Sure.
whatever.
Yes.
You want the plan to have the perfect guy, the KD in his prime plan.
Yes. Would love if you could clone prime Michael Jordan. That would be so nice if they could just do that right here.
But they can't.
No.
So, but it would feel like what he was trying to do had worked. Now, whether the team works, I don't know. But, and I hope it does. I have a hard time believing that we haven't seen the rest of the team. We've seen a couple of players, obviously. I have a hard time believing the team won't be very good. I have a hard time believing the team doesn't win like 56 games or something, Yeah. And I have a hard time believing the team doesn't end up as one of the top 4, most likely top 3 teams in the conference going into the playoffs, all those things. But I am incredibly guarded because I am as Negadelphia as anyone about this. Not Negadelphia about Paul George, the player, but Negadelphia about that it's actually going to happen. Yeah. So I'm terrified.
Look, we will have the whole offseason to talk about the fit and stuff. So I think right now the best thing to do is to feel the moment that we're in right now.
Yes.
But
even though by the time you wake up, this moment might even be
this could be gone. But this is
it's time capsule.
This is a time capsule, and unfortunately, the time capsule does go away immediately after every podcast. That's why I've never said anything wrong or upsetting.
I would feel
as the other options fell away, as there became other people around the league re-signing with their own teams. Drew, going back to even further, Jaylen Brown. OG Anunoby, whoever, pick anybody that's
Pascal
been signed for the last couple of years. Pascal, like there were few options. The options were few, and it became either sign Paul George to this, signed a free agent DeMar DeRozan to something less than this, which obviously doesn't fit for a bunch of reasons. And I would have talked myself into it being fine at a lower cost, whatever. And then it was trades, and any version of trades, you have to get the other team to agree to it. And the player to want, at least in theory, to want to be here. If they're a high-level player, they should want to be, you want them to be happy in this place as the number 3 option between those two guys, Maxey and Joel. And then also you have to trade picks and shit for him. Mm-hmm. And so the Paul George option, where it's just he walks in, he signs for a big fucking deal, and they have as many picks they have, Jared McCain, and now 4 future firsts to play with and trade. This is the best option. You could convince me on court that Ingram is younger and maybe longer and maybe more athletic at this point and has room to grow and blah, 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 and whatever. Everybody has problems. There's no perfect fit anything. Even if in a world where Mikal Bridges came here, it would be not a perfect fit because, in games when Joel's not playing, could Mikal Bridges scale up the way you'd need him to?
To be clear, he would fit perfect, but he wouldn't necessarily provide you exactly what you're looking for.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying there's not... I think that we all do this where we play the no game and we say, like, well, not that. I mean, that person's not for that price, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, like, Paul George is definitely on the older side, has dealt with injuries, but he's fucking an all-NBA player who plays both ways, who can play on ball or off ball, who can get to the rim, who can defend 1 through 4, sometimes at least. That'll get worse as he gets older. But you're when Embiid is there and Maxey is there, this is the guy that you would be paying a lot of money to be a very good 3-and-D player, which is fine. And then when he's not, when one of them is not there, then he's asked to do a lot more. And I think the Mike O'Connor wrote a "Is Paul George a Loser?" article today. Does it matter? That kind of thing.
It was very good.
I thought it was well written.
RightsToRickySanchez.com. Hit subscribe. Get him to your
inbox. It helps that he's the third guy here. It just helps that he's the third guy here, and he gets to come in and be like, he can have his flaws. He can have his like a little spaciness. I didn't love, similar to MOC, I didn't love the quotes about, oh, the Clippers traded all away our dirty work guys. And now like me and Kawhi and Harden had to do the dirty work. You'd rather your star just be excited about that. You'd rather them not have to go like begrudgingly stuff where it's just like comes naturally to them rather than, oh, we don't have Nic Batum or Robert Covington to do some stuff. So I guess I have to like lug myself around.
By the way, this is why current players should not do podcasts, because
I don't disagree.
If they're saying normal things that most superstars think, just because they're talking for an hour or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. It's just, you can do whatever you want. If you're a current player, this is why you shouldn't. Anyway, continue.
But yes, I agree. And the quote about like him watching like Stephen A. Smith and Chad Ochocinco and Shannon Sharp to get better at podcasts. He's watching tape to get better at being a media member. That's embarrassing. Of course it is. But like, whatever. Well, he's going to say dumb shit.
I'm glad he wants to get better at it, for sure.
I know, but that's like, he's listing those guys. Like, come on.
What do you want to listen to Nate Duncan and?
No, don't list.
Yeah.
Don't list. Just don't list.
No offense, Nate Duncan, but
don't list anybody. Come on.
You should have listed us.
Well, he doesn't know us yet.
Daryl came on the podcast when he worked for the Rockets. Fuck.
I think we're just at a place where the idea of being patient, the idea of being waiting for the perfect one, fucking they're waiting for to taste the perfect porridge and it's just right and the bed is comfy. It's like this is it. He's Paul George. You're gonna overpay him when he's 37 or whatever. Lock in.
This MF's eating porridge.
Well, I was like it's the three bears.
Pigs, yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, clearly, the books think that Paul George is going to the Sixers.
Yeah.
As on DraftKings specifically, the Sixers are now plus 1,000 to win the title, and they were plus 1,300 or 1,400 last week, I think, last time I looked. And the Sixers are now tied with the Knicks in the odds to win the Eastern Conference. So it was it's now Celtics plus 150, and both the Sixers and the Knicks plus 425, and the Bucks plus 600. And who knows what will happen once the actual, what's it called? Once the actual signing gets announced. But that was the reaction on DraftKings Sportsbook. Of course, if you haven't downloaded the DraftKings Sportsbook app, you have to. Don't be a fucking sucker. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app. First of all, I want you to look through it, feel how it works. Pretty intuitive. Good part about it, it's easy to put money in, easy to take money out. And if you're new to DraftKings, new customers get $5. You bet $5 and you get $150 in bonus bets instantly. So if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, put a little money at Sixers future or whatever, because when Paul George signs, the odds probably going to get shorter. Use code RTRS. That's code RTRS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Got to be 21. See show notes for details. Now, actually, the one thing that I'm nervous about is the Pistons title odds. Well, they stay at plus 100,000. So clearly the books do not think that Paul George is going to the Pistons. Yeah, I think this is the best they could do this offseason. And not only do I think it's the best they could do, I think it is a good option. And I think this will be probably the best Sixers team that we have seen.
Certainly the one that makes the most sense.
Makes the most sense. Like the big three, I think Elliot Shore Parks tweeted earlier, their top three scorers score more points than any top three scorers in the NBA, which is not, if Paul George were to come to the Sixers, something like 87, 88 points a game. So not that like that is a recipe for success, as the Suns just did something, but this three makes a lot more sense than the Suns three does.
Way more sense. And it makes sense for Daryl. He likes this shit. It's a star league. He's a star guy. That's been his ethos forever.
Yep.
And it's good for Daryl for the cap space plan, like bearing fruit. That is good for him after he's received a lot of shit from a lot of people, including us, about how he's, deferred to, how he handled the Simmons thing and how it handled the Harden thing and not getting anybody at the deadlines that really made a difference and all that stuff. And good for Joel, man. How about Joel? How about Joel going on fucking NBA Finals pregame show and recruiting Paul George and making a face at him and sitting next to him?
If this happens.
How about it?
How about?
I'm happy for him. And this is what we wanted to do this. When you're a superstar, that's the kind of recruiting that you do. That's the kind of like, go out there. You're a businessman. Bring some guys home. Let's go. I'm happy for the guy.
Did you see that Paul George's wife had followed Anna DePaula earlier?
I loved it.
Anna DePaula,
I love it.
Embiid.
These are the good updates.
Yeah.
We like these updates.
Like them.
We like those updates. Tell me who their wives are following, especially when it's good. Not like this fucking horrible person that you don't want out. Don't look at their follows. Don't look at their follows. This is a good follow. We like looking at follows when they are good. Thank you to Joel's wife and Paul George's wife for following each other and giving us a little bit of a window. That is nice. I did notice that Paul George would need to, this is early, get a new number because both his numbers have been retired. Wilt Chamberlain 13, Bobby Jones 24. So that would be.
You have any suggestions for him if he were to come to the Sixers?
99.
There you go. I was going to say 00, so.
That's very confusing for the refs, which I like. The refs should be confused.
They could just do this, right?
So it's just two hands?
Wasn't Isaiah Cannon single-0?
Yes, but Maxey's single-0.
Oh,
Spencer Hawes was 00.
Spencer Hawes was 00. Give him this.
A little complicated.
Yeah.
The question, well, we can do this later, but it's again like Daryl doing like an obvious good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he needs to get credit for this one.
I'm not saying he shouldn't get credit for it, but it is a little bit like he took Maxey when he fell to him. He made the first moves he made were like, trading Horford for Danny Green, trading Josh Richardson for Seth Curry, just the obvious, easy move some things around. Just like this clears up the space very easily. It's like, it's smart, but it's not so smart. You know what I mean? It's like obvious smart.
It gets harder. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, and I think McCain was like that also. It's like, here's a guy that's going to like a safe pick. He is a shooter with a high work ethic that is it doesn't profile to be anything more or less than like a really solid sixth man in this league. It's just like he didn't move up or swindle anybody out of anything. It was kind of just, and here comes Paul George, like walking into cap space because he read, and this is good, I guess, good intel and good organizational work across the board of, hey, we don't, whether it's relationships with agents or whoever, I don't really know how that shit works, but Daryl going, we think there's a chance that somebody is going to come here into this cap space, and having been targeting Paul George for, at least in their minds, for half a season at least, it's just like it worked. It's good that it worked. I'm not taking away credit for him, but it's also it's again like it's not brilliant. You know what I mean? It's a straight line, one direction, an easy pull. I don't know why I'm saying that. It doesn't. I'm not like dinging him in any way. Like, it's good to do the easy thing, but it's also, I guess, reputationally, Daryl made his bones on like trading for James Harden when he was the sixth man and making him into a superstar, allowing him to be a superstar. And so far here, in the 4 years he's been here, he's kind of just been like, balls, the baseball metaphor, like pitch is thrown high and outside, he just goes with the opposite. It's just easy stuff, like goes with the opposite way, take a walk, whatever. Like nothing crazy, all easy, which is good. But it's just a little surprising based on the narrative of Dow coming in. Sorry for all that ranting.
I think two things. I think one, he's older now. The older you get, the less you have to prove things to people. And I wonder if sometimes overthinking things and trying to be too cute, like maybe he's just doesn't see the need for it anymore. Yeah. Sometimes the most simple thing to do, the Maxey thing, worked out pretty good. Training for D'Anthony Melton,
yeah.
All those things worked out pretty good. Paul George is the right thing. I also think it does, and people have said this a lot, it's a lot easier to swindle people when you are sort of like not in the position that team is in, when you're when the pressure isn't on to win right away and you can take chances. I think that's the other thing. And I also do think that I think the rest of the league has gotten a lot smarter in the 15 years he's been doing this.
Or if not, if you just more like-minded, probably.
Yes. They have caught up to what he had, what he was thinking at first. And then I think the other thing is nobody wants to get fucking owned by Daryl.
I do think that's part of it.
From a trade standpoint, which I think he probably pays a little bit of a Daryl tax sometimes on trades.
Yeah.
Just because people want to be sure they don't fucking get roasted by him.
Which so should Ainge and Brad Stevens now, by the way.
Yes, I think so. And by the way, Ainge is now in a position where doesn't have to win right away, so it sort of puts him in a little bit better position to be Ainge and that sort of stuff. So all that said, I think his run as Sixers president of operations, a lot of it, the grade on it goes into this offseason. And now obviously it all has to work and we have to see the rest of it. But I have, up until this point, I think he has done just fine, hitting singles or whatever. Yeah. And this is, if they sign Paul George, not a lot of like max level players change teams in free agency. It's a pretty risky shot that I think if you were to ask him, and I'm sure we'll have him on after all this is done, but I think if you were to ask him, hey, what did you truly think the likelihood of this happening was? I don't know. It's 50-50 shot, and you have to have 7 backup plans if this one doesn't work. So
yeah, I bet it was less than 50 for a while, and then it's crept up for a little bit. I also want to add just a small thing, but the Sixers do have a piece of Clippers draft picks in 3 of the next 5 years.
Yes, and making them worse isn't so bad.
Which is also good. I mean, Kawhi has had a ton of injuries. James Harden is one Kawhi, pick a body part injury away from being like the only guy on the team, basically. Mm-hmm. And if that turns south, obviously they think, they got the new stadium. They think that they're going to position themselves to be a major player, willing to spend money for a long time. But the Sixers having a piece of those draft picks, because some of them, one's a swap, one's like Sixers get the worst of these. One is just an unprotected. That's the 2028 unprotected. I would guess, not that they're going to make those picks, but it's helpful it's a valuable trade piece as the Clippers both become worse and pretty all in right now. And I would guess that they trade that pick this year before the Clippers make a move.
Yes.
That starts to make their future look a little bit better, whether that's this season or next in this offseason or something.
I was going to say, forget about them being worse. They will be perceived as being worse, which will make those picks more valuable.
Yeah, for sure. Which is why when the Sixers had the Lakers pick a few years earlier, that they then traded to the Clippers for Tobias Harris. And so this could project to be that kind of the thing. But I think that's cool. It's cool to have a piece of that. It's cool that Daryl got those picks in the Harden trade. It's nice, and I don't think that they're going to make any big, huge right now there was room. The Lauri Markkanen had a moment of like, could the Sixers go all in for Lauri? And that would just really hamstring them so much. Even the Clippers in their like press release or whatever, which is confusing why they did that, like noted how restrictive the CBA is.
The second apron of the CBA, yes.
And so I think that's why I do think there is some diminishing returns as far as like continuing to add high usage players that even if they fit pretty well, you really are hamstrung in so many ways if something goes even a little bit wrong. So I would guess that it's like these are the three guys that they build around. They build around them for a long time. Try to work some draft picks in there to get, role player build into something. Maybe trade them eventually if they become higher value, and sign a ton of guys at the minimums, which worked well for the Sixers last year.
Do you want to get into the other stuff?
I think we should talk about
the
other two signings and then what could happen from here.
Okay. So before we do, the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Now, I got a text from LL, and it was, oh my God, it's a picture of his dick. No, I'm just kidding. I got a text from LL, and just to let everybody know that they are on vacation July 2nd through July 15th. Now, that's a long vacation for LL. But he needs it. He needs the energy.
Where's he at? Do we know?
What's that?
Do we know where he is?
Where are they going to go? Well, he's not on vacation yet. But I don't know. Should we send a cookie basket or something wherever he's on vacation? Or send Ricky listeners there?
I think send some listeners, yeah.
Yeah, July 2nd to July 15th. Back open on July 16th. So we'll be open Monday. But vacation Tuesday, July 2nd through Monday, July 15th. Back on July 16th. Over 400 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have purchased engagement rings from LL Pavorsky Jewelers, our first sponsor. And that 400, that's a lot of people. A lot of people over 6-7 years. A lot of happy folks. Everybody who buys an engagement ring from LL is thrilled because he treats you just awesome. You get personal attention, no pressure at all. A lot of the jewelry stores, you walk in, they're on you like that, like fucking vultures or whatever. But not LL. That's why he wants you to make an appointment. That's why he doesn't want walk-ins, because he wants to be able to take time with you and not focus on somebody else that walks in there. Whether you're going to spend $1,000 on an engagement ring or $100,000 on an engagement ring, he's going to treat you exactly the same. Maybe a little bit better for the $100,000, but only a little bit better. He's a great guy. They have the jewelry is obviously awesome. Wouldn't tell you to go there. If not, going to get a great deal on it. And as I've said a bunch of times here, the most important thing is that you're going to get treated awesome. The store is at 707 Walnut. Been there for over 35 years. If you want to make an appointment, give him a call, 215-627-2252. Shoot him an email, lee@llpavorsky.com. Tweet at him at @llpavorsky. Always know he is a supporter of all of our charitable efforts, but our two charities, Mama T's Community Fridge and Providence Animal Center. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Can't spell Paul George without cabana sale.
When is the cabana sale?
Wow.
Jesus. So the first thing, before we talk about who they signed, I think we have to give a farewell to one player who has been noted that will not be back. And I think we need to do a highlight reel / musical tribute that was recorded by Andrew Unterberger in one of the all-time best Ricky moments when AU texted me and said he wanted to do a parody song of POD's Boom about Nic Batum. And I was so puzzled. And I said, okay. And I said, CJ, are you willing to produce a video for this? And he said, yes. And this is what we got.
LOZ! I never knew that a guy like Nico still had it in him to be popping threes like Boom Clico, kicking asses, blocking shots, deflecting passes to the play, and he would go. A perfect new stretch for the Heat, don't know it though. And he been putting in work, average 5 points a game, 0 threat to go berserk, was disrespected. Left wide open by Miami, he might have been reading off, but he was praying by the daddy. You didn't know when we was down by 14. It's alright, it's alright. Embiid looking sick, Maxey nowhere to be seen. It's alright, it's alright. 2! Here comes Batum! Ready or not, here comes the boy from La France. 2! Here comes Batum! Ready or not, haha, Miami Heat, bon chance.
Miami Heat, bon chance. What a way to end it.
AU is a fantastic writer, and I love him to death. That is his fucking crowning moment on the Ricky so far. So Nic Batum, per reports, will not return to the Sixers. He was very sad. He was awesome to have on the team. Great defender, great passer. Won the play-in game basically. Yep. Single-handedly, did seem like he was an option if the Sixers struck out on PG to overpay for a 1+1 and end up using as a trade chip. And I think they probably got the indication very early on that the PG thing was probably going to happen, and he is not going to be back. But Nic Batum was only here for a year or less than a year, but was a great Sixer. By the way, it has to be noted, if they end up with Paul George, Morey will have turned James Harden's opt-in into 2 unprotected Clippers picks, Batum, Covington, KJ, whatever, and Paul George. Not a bad outcome, all things considered.
I mean, it's worked out. And Harden then going to the Clippers and it not working out, but the Clippers still wanting to sign him to today, 2 years, $70 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
Not in China. That bet's gonna be wrong.
Yeah.
But
it's
Harden
worth a shot.
Failing and the Clippers failing might have caused Paul George to be like, I don't want to be here. For this money, I don't want to be here. I'm going somewhere else.
And by the way,
that has worked out.
By the way, like, it is funny that what Harden wanted, Morey probably would have given him. What Harden got, Morey would have given him.
Yeah.
He would have given him the opt-in plus 2 more years and $70 million. There's no question he would have given him that. Like, no question at all. So,
yes. I think he still would have given it to him.
This offseason.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
I think if Paul George was like, I'm staying. If Paul George signed the max with Clippers and Harden hadn't signed yet and they made up, I think Darryl would have been like, get back over here, you rascal.
Yeah, we talked about that a bunch of times when I suggested the possibility that neither of us thought it was impossible.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So Nic Batum is gone. The Sixers add Andre Drummond for 2 years, $5 million. The second year is a player option. Everybody has won. Andre Drummond must have the highest Q rating among Sixers fans for any backup center of all time.
Absolutely. So here's the deal. He never got to play in the playoffs here.
He did not.
So it was a little bit of the one that got away. They signed him in the offseason of 21 and then traded him to Brooklyn in the Simmons deal. And so he never got to, he was fine. He was perfectly fine here. He rebounded. He did his thing. He made a couple goofy passes. Joel seemed to like him. All that stuff was totally fine. And
you remember the awkward hug at the beginning of it? Because
I thought it was a nice hug.
Well, if you obviously
they had beef in the past.
Well, yeah, Embiid used to make fun of him because he used to foul him out all the time.
Yeah,
and when Drummond went into the gym to give him a hug, there is like a smirk on Embiid's face. Yeah,
he's a very readable man.
Yeah,
and that's why it's very funny to the fact that he's so massive and one of the best basketball players. I don't know where he's going to end up on the top 100 list or whatever, but the fact that we know him so well is such a bizarre thing. You can look at his face and be like, I know what he's thinking. Drummond never, unlike every other backup center that Joel has had since he started playing in 2016, Drummond did not get to fail in the playoffs here. And so here we're seeing the hug. There's a little smirk there. That's a smirk.
Yeah.
That's the eyes.
And the double pat on the hug.
Good. Good. We're good. Yeah, you're fine. I'm fine. Okay, we're past that.
Sorry, I was saying that you. Yeah.
But but Drummond the thing that I have started to think more and more, even as I love B-Ball Paul so much, is that having a backup center that does a better impression of what Joel does on the defensive end would really help the continuity of this team, whether it's games that Joel plays in or he doesn't, but especially in the playoffs when there's 8 to 10 whatever minutes a game, that the defense doesn't have to fully change to be like, okay, now we're switching everything. Now we're doing this. Now B-ball is not going to clean up your mistakes. So like actually turn it on for these moments. I think that it's nice to have optionality. And I think that in a perfect world, they would have that in a small ball lineup where like the offense is better and there's still some rim protection. That's why Batum was so good. And I will miss him very much. I did love him. He's one of my favorite role players of this era for sure. But Drummond just being like, hey, I just rebound shit. And I stand there and I'm not going to try to do like dipsy do b-ball Paul stuff, I think is probably a safer bet for what this team needs.
So in the regular season, he will be fine.
Yeah.
He will get a bunch of rebounds. I am not an Andre Drummond guy at all. But this offseason, now when I freak out in a positive way about Eric Gordon, this offseason's too important for me to like care that much about how good Andre Drummond is or isn't. I can't imagine him playing in the playoffs. Like I think it'll be a disaster in the playoffs. He's bad
definitely
hands.
Gonna play in the playoffs if he's here.
Well, he's got bad hands. Well, they're gonna need a third center. Like, because if we assume that Embiid's going to miss 25 games,
yeah,
then they're going to need another center.
I'm sure that they'll have a Dembona as like a sometimes guy, and if he's a rookie who's drafted in the second round, so you're not going to count on him for a ton. So they'll probably get another veteran, a Plumlee or a Zeller or something like that. Something like that. But
I think he's
going to play 10 minutes a game in the playoffs in games Joel plays in.
He's got bad hands.
Of course he got bad hands. Don't pass to him.
Well, hold on.
Just let him throw lobs.
He's got bad hands.
Receive lobs, I mean.
He's not really a very good defender from like a positional I don't like him very much, but whatever. Everybody loves him for some reason here in Philly, and it is probably because he never played in the playoffs. But
That's
as you said, he's fine. He is absolutely fine. I don't care.
He's perfectly fine. Normal as a backup center. They'd give him a little bit more than the minimum, 2 years, $10 million, which is fine. That's going to come out of the
well, it's the whole mid-level exception.
It's going to come out of the room mid-level. It's not going to be all of it.
Yeah,
they'll still have some of it to play with probably.
Well, and I think one of the reasons they had to pay him that much, by the way, is because they probably had to. I don't know. I have no idea. Well, he could go find it somewhere else.
I think he knows he's going to get a ton of starter minutes here when Joel's out, because Joel's going to miss time, and he already knows it here. He seemed to like it here. He gets a chance to contend and be on like a really legitimate team. I was not a huge Drummond guy when he was here. Longtime listeners to this podcast will know that I called him an overrated rebounder because he just sort of got what came to him. He was never like coming out of the blue to get something that he shouldn't have gotten to, even the ones that like PJ Tucker will occasionally get to, where he just like out hustle somebody for it. It's really just like he's big, he's standing in the lane, the ball comes to him. He then went out and posted his best total rebounding percentages in back-to-back years by like a significant margin right in my face. And so if this is who he is, like he's been unbelievable. He had a defensive rebound percentage 2 years ago of 40. Of fucking 40, dude. And last year was 37, and his offensive rebound percentage last year was like 21.5.
Yeah.
That is insane. And the Sixers got blown the fuck up on the boards in this Knicks series. So to such an offensive way. That was such an embarrassing display of rebounding over and over again.
Now, by the way,
go out and get the best or one of the best defensive rebounders in the game is enormous. That is an enormous thing to do for 2 years, $10 million, both when Joel's there and when he's not there. B-Ball Paul has a lot of great traits. He's not a great defensive rebounder. Couldn't finish possessions as often as you'd want him to, especially against the Knicks. He was just like undersized and outmanned and out-physicaled by a lot of those guys. And so having Drummond there will absolutely make a big, big difference.
Now, to be clear, part of the reason that they're not a great rebounding team when Embiid's on the court either. And Drummond's not going to be on the court because Embiid is an okay rebounder. He is a fine rebounder for his size. He is not an elite rebounder. He's a good fine rebounder. So, and Andre Drummond's not going to be on the court when Embiid is on the court. So,
but like for like a rebound at the end of a game, maybe they put them both in.
Well, they did
at the foul line.
They did. Zoe posted the picture of them together, like smiling, and that was from a game against the Timberwolves that went into double overtime. When I do believe they shared the court in overtime for a small time.
And so. I think, I hear what you're saying about how he's not B-ball Paul in space. He's not going to be able to switch onto a guard and make him take a tough shot. But he's better than he gets credit for. He always racks up a ton of steals. As far as the center goes, he gets his hands on a ton of balls. He's long. He's got strong hands. Like he's a playmaker on that end. And he's not the rim protector Joel is by any stretch, but he's really become the platonic ideal of a backup center.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's fine
for a team that has struggled, and Daryl hasn't cared about it, but he was wrong then, and maybe he's right now. Maybe now he's learned. It's just, you just need to have a backup center that matters. B-ball Paul was good enough for a time, and then really it showed in that series that he just has not grown enough to where, with the lack of like a consistent shot on one end and the being normal on one end, and just getting out physical on the glass, you kind of just needed to improve. And so as far as what happens with B-ball from here, they have him for an unguaranteed 2 years left at $7-ish million. I do think they're going to look to try to trade him. I don't think they're desperate to do it. I don't think they have to do it right now, but I would be very annoyed if they just cut him for like salary space to go sign somebody. I would much rather, because I do think this is a good value contract. There are teams that could want him if they're patient enough for it. And I think that there's a couple guys that I would love to see come back in a B-ball trade, whether it's to Oklahoma City for Kenrich Williams. There's a Sixers Adam article where he listed some guys, but some of my favorites are Kenrich Williams, OKC, Cody Martin on Charlotte, Ayo Dosunmu, Chicago, maybe even Trey Jones, San Antonio, or in like a Brandon Ingram trade where the Sixers are the third team and B-ball ends up in New Orleans because they need a big man right now. So I love B-ball. You know I love B-ball. Everybody knows we love B-ball.
Yeah.
But part of this era of basketball is letting our baby birds go when it's time to let them go. And then like Covington and maybe, who knows, like Dario this offseason, you gotta bring him back in. You gotta let him come back in. And then we love him again. So
we'll get to the other guy right after we talk about our final sponsor of the pod, Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process. By the way, I find out from LL, where are they going on vacation? I don't think he'll mind, because you're not going to fly there just to bother LL. And this is a very big area, even though he did send me an itinerary map as well. Karen and I are going to the Mediterranean to take a cruise to celebrate our 33rd wedding anniversary and our upcoming 60th birthdays in September and October.
Very nice.
Looks like he'll be going to Venice, Ravenna, Split, Dubrovnik, Athens, Istanbul, Kazadasi.
Well,
so there you go. It looks
Adam
like Greece.
Can't get you a house there, but he could get you a house on the Delaware beaches.
Hey-o! Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process.
This is what I do now.
Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process. Ksebe, Ksebe. That's how you spell Ksebe. I'll be going down to the Delaware beaches July 13th. I will not be going down in my own home because I'm a fucking idiot, and I should have listened to Adam Ksebe like 3 or 4 years ago and gotten a home down there, but I didn't, and now they've priced me out of it because I'm an idiot. Now I got to spend thousands of dollars to fucking rent a house for a week. But in any case, Adam Ksebe is the official realtor of the process and the king of the Delaware beaches. If you want a Delaware beach home, and I'll explain to you why you do in a second, you got to call him or text him, 302-864-8643 or adam@processrealtor.com. Taxes are way lower. Property taxes are way lower in Delaware compared to Jersey if you want a shore home. Also, here's what you do. You buy the house. You're like, I can't afford that. What you do is you rent it out most of the year. You keep it for a few weeks here and there so you can go on your vacation. Then when you rent it out, they're basically paying your mortgage for you. They're very in demand, these homes. So you need a realtor who has his ear to the ground, who knows about these houses, knows where to lead you, but knows how to tell you to bid to make sure that you get the home. Ksebe and his team, based out of Long and Foster and Bethany Beach, are going to help you out with that. Help you sell a house or buy a house in Delaware Beaches, or Maryland. You got Ocean City, Maryland right there. Whether it is in Rehoboth or Lewis or Bethany Beach or the Dewey, wherever it is, Ksebe, Ksebe, that is your fucking guy. Takes it seriously. Also, if you're looking to buy a house or sell a house in PA, New Jersey, New York, any other state, he can't do it for you other than Delaware and Maryland, but he can be your resource. You go to him, you tell him what you're looking for, what you're looking to do. He will interview realtors and get you the best realtor for your situation. Again, Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process, Ksebe. Give him a call or shoot him a text, 302-864-8643, or adam@processrealtor.com. So
Derek
Sixers
Jones Jr. just signed with the Los Angeles Clippers, 3 years, $30 million.
Oh, that's a pretty good deal for him and for them.
It's a great deal for him. I was bummed to see that Najee Marshall went to the Mavs, 327. It was a guy I really wanted a lot, but the Sixers couldn't afford him. But they could afford your friend, Eric Gordon.
Now, I have been asking for Eric Gordon for years.
Yes. And Daryl needed to get his kink off.
Yes,
he has
Houston
never
guy.
Had Paul George, so he's like getting the shakes a little bit. He did acquire someone he had before in Drummond, but it's like, but he wasn't on the Rockets. He's not a Rocket, and he had to get one. Let him get his kink off in peace. Eric Gordon, welcome to Philadelphia. At the minimum is great. Minimum is great for Eric Gordon.
I love Eric Gordon. He sits very, very high on the Tyler Johnson scale of players that were never Sixers. And
Tyler Johnson was a Sixer.
Well, before he was a Sixer, I mean. Like, I was a huge fan of Tyler Johnson before he was a Sixer. So on the role player guys who were never Sixers, who for some reason I really, really like. Here's what I love about Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon shoots from really far away.
Yep.
And Eric Gordon's a really good three-point shooter, but specifically will shoot from really far away. He's got
antithesis of Buddy Hield.
Yes. He's got a very quick trigger on those things. Does not care, will fire away. Has played in Daryl type systems, by the way, like is used to firing away. Also, physically, a bulldog, like is a very strong, thick guy.
No neck.
Very PJ Tucker-like, short PJ Tucker-like in his build, but defensively, a very strong, like he's obviously not as quick anymore, but I think he's a strong team defender. And also the final thing I would say is that even though he is known as just a shooter, he, earlier in his career, was a much more dynamic scorer.
Oh, yeah.
Is a very capable ball handler. Not that you want him running back up point or anything, but I am not scared when Eric Gordon is in the corner with the ball and has to dribble up. He can dribble up the court, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. He is the kind of shooter that we need. We need a shooter with no conscience. We need a shooter who's going to shoot from far away. We need a shooter who's going to dependably shoot from far away and who doesn't need the ball otherwise, has played in hardened systems, right? Last year played with Phoenix, a place where he doesn't get the ball all the time. So I think Eric Gordon's a great signing. I'm very happy to have him on the Sixers.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect at the minimum. He's 35. He's going to turn 36 in December. So he's old, but his career true shooting average is 56%. The last 3 seasons of true shooting for Eric Gordon, 61%, 59%, 58%. So as he has taken less of a role in the offense, as he's gotten older, he's become a more efficient shooter. Obviously, you said known for volume, known for distance, will be great in transition on the wing when Maxey's like flying up the court and he'll run to the corner or the wing. And in the corner, his last 4 seasons of corner threes, 50% from the corner, 50% from the corner, 47% from the corner, 41% from the corner.
By the way, I think Cam Johnson last year was 44%, just to give you context on how good.
He's good.
Yeah.
I don't want him starting. I would love to get better players there, but as like the 7th, 8th guy who for the minimum comes in and out of the rotation as you need it, I think he's going to be in it for most of the season. I'm very happy with him there. Now, Legs pointed this out on Twitter, and I agree with him. Does have some Danny Green level brain freezes sometimes where he is going to do some things that you're like, why is it like, why, when did you think, what year do you think it is? But you deal with that. It's the minimum, a really nice signing. It's always when you go like, okay, here's three players that are making $1 billion and everybody else is making 12 cents. In your mind, you go like, it's hard to imagine hitting on enough of those guys for that to be useful. But last year they definitely did in Pat Bev and Oubre, and even, I mean, not Mo Bamba, but not Mo Bamba. I was going to say something nice about him, but he wasn't good. And this is the first of its kind of this season, and we'll see who else they bring back. But like, this is just a very, very solid signing, and I'm happy he's here. Now, I feel a little, we didn't talk about this yet, but declining Jeff Dowtin's option, I thought was a little bit bizarre.
Unless Jeff Dowtin wanted to be able to
go somewhere else.
Yeah, like unless the agent thought he had sniffs other places where he would play more and so on and so forth.
That makes sense. I think that makes sense. Maybe he got an overseas offer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think he's a solid player, and I think Nurse probably likes him, and I think he could have been like useful for a while, but it would have been a good tradable salary. That plus B-ball could have gotten them into the like Dorian Finney-Smith tier of player that you could acquire. But now it just becomes which guys come back, which guys are going to take a little bit less, whatever's left of the room mid-level, or sign for a minimum. I would guess Oubre is the most likely. I think
Melton
out of all those. Melton depends. I think the back is a concern. Mm-hmm. And when they just have so little money to play with, they might just decide we can't risk having a guy that's on the shelf for 3-4 months at the price that he would take. I'd definitely be interested in bringing KJ Martin back. I think especially without Tobias, everybody else in the Sixers right now, theoretically, is going to be ready to shoot. Everybody's going to be ready to shoot. Tobias was not ready to shoot. Tobias and KJ was tough. But KJ is still super young. He's really athletic. He's dynamic with the ball in his hands with a head of steam. He showed me something on defense a couple times last year and being like physical and guarding up.
He got better right now, as the season went on, for sure.
Yeah. I would definitely be interested in bringing him back for, I mean, especially if it's the minimum, I would love that. I don't know how much it's going to take, but maybe a Lowry, maybe a campaign. I wouldn't be super surprised if Marcus Morris came back at the minimum. Nick Nurse obviously loved him and would not be dissuaded from playing him until Daryl traded his ass. What do you think about Clay? I think it's unlikely that they have the money to get him, but what do you think if he took a less money to play here?
Well, he would have to take tons less money to play here. It doesn't seem like it's even possible.
There's just not that many places that have salary cap, and if he wants to win.
Yeah. I am friends with Sam Esfandiari from Light Years, and I've just been conditioned to think that Clay is ultra cooked, not a great teammate.
Not a great teammate.
Yeah. And sort of like,
is Sam who said that Oubre is bad also?
No, I will not comment on anything that Oubre of people that told me that Oubre was bad. But for what it's worth, the Oubre stuff was consistent and from inside teams as well. So I can tell you that. I think Oubre was bad in other places.
Yeah, but at the minimum at that size, with how dynamic he was before, on rough teams, it was always a good signing, and people that were like clowning it I thought that was insane from the beginning. But
you sign anybody on a minimum,
exactly.
It's a good
exactly.
Yeah, I just don't think it's possible that they sign him.
Yeah.
I think
he'll get more somewhere else. Probably.
Yeah. So I think I would be fine with it, but I also I'm thankful at this point that he's not. Even if they signed him, he wouldn't be a key part of whatever plan they have. So I think I would be fine with it, but I just don't know how they would create the money to sign him.
Well, let me pitch something to you.
Oh boy.
I have not heard this discussed, and it might be quickly dismissed.
Okay.
I'm just bringing it up because I haven't thought about it. Everyone's been assuming that this would happen, but is there a chance that Tyrese Maxey signs for less than the max?
No.
Is there a chance that it happens?
Nope.
Is there a chance that Maxey goes, I got all these sponsorships deals.
Nope.
I don't even really need money that much. I'm the happiest guy in the world. What I really would like is to play with Klay Thompson or pick a guy, whoever.
Nope. I don't think Clutch would allow him to do it at this point in his career. It's his first max deal. I think it's like almost literally impossible.
That's probably right. But I hadn't heard people talking about it. And I wanted to just, everyone's been assuming that it's going to be the case. I was just asking.
Yeah.
If
Do you know something? Or
no, I don't know anything. This is based on nothing.
Okay.
But it was just like, I could just see him being a guy that goes, I want to win. There's no difference between like, you know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but 140 million and 155 million or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've looked, Tobias should still have given him money. Maybe Tobias can like sort of retroactively give him some of his money. But if that's not the case, then they really will have not that much to play with.
Yeah.
And so some of the guys I'm looking at, I'm going to name a couple.
Okay.
Obviously, I already said Dario.
Yeah.
Would love him as a backup 4 or 5. Good rebounder, good passer. Has turned himself into a good shooter. Like, would just be really helpful. Obviously, it would be so cool for Embiid to have him back. Haywood Highsmith, former Sixer.
Have seen them as listed as suitors. He's become a nice little player.
Absolutely has. Was on this podcast before.
Mm-hmm.
These are just dirty work guys that I think you kind of want. I'm not necessarily. I would rather lean defense on a team with Maxey, Embiid, and Paul George. If it happens, I'm prioritizing defense 100%. So I know people like Lonnie Walker. He's local-ish. I wouldn't hate it, but to me, I wouldn't be a priority for me. I like a DeLon Wright. I've always liked a DeLon Wright. I want one of Chris Dunn or Markelle Fultz. I want that. I don't know.
I don't think Markelle can do Philly again.
I don't think he can either.
Yeah.
Chris Dunn would be cool though, man. He is a fucking monster on the defensive end.
I was gonna say, is he a motherfucker? He seems like
absolutely
he's a motherfucker.
on defense. Absolutely.
Do you remember when we were gonna trade up to get him in that
We were
draft?
gonna do everything.
That was the Colangelo draft. I believe that was the first Colangelo draft. Is Chris Dunn?
2016? Yeah.
Yeah.
He shot on low attempts the past 2 years. He's shot 39.5% combined the last 2 seasons on not that many attempts. But as a utility player once in a while, come in for defense, I would really love Chris Dunn. I'm also interested in Lamar Stevens, maybe a Josh Okogie, maybe a Cedi Osman. I'm intrigued by whatever Talen Horton-Tucker gets. My concern about Drummond, Gordon, obviously Paul George. I don't want to get too old. We're
in the old era. We're old. They're old. This is what happens when you do the
Maxey's
podcast
young,
for 11
Jared
years.
McCain is young. Ricky Council is. We're going to see how this shakes out. There's obviously going to be signings announced over the next couple days. We're close to me making a full campaign for starting power forward Ricky Council.
Oh, it's never gonna happen.
We're just a couple away.
Poor Daryl.
Just a little bit away from me starting to start that campaign.
It's never going to happen. He's never going to start.
It definitely. They are as of right now, no one is going to start. They're going to start Maxey, Embiid, and then everybody else is just going to like wait around.
By the way, someone mentioned in the chat, and I don't think it's impossible, Pat Bev reunion. I don't think it's impossible that they signed Pat Bev, by the way.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I would love, like, if they traded for, like, Dosunmu, I think Dosunmu could start at the 2 between Maxey and PG. It's interesting. There's just not that much money to move. There's not that many guys to go for. I'm interested to see where this ends up, and I know Daryl's going to say the team is not fully formed. In August, judge us at the trade deadline. That has not worked.
Yeah, we're gonna judge
the trade deadline for a while, but there's going to be some guys that go there. So I'm excited to see who comes back, who they go after. I mean, I'm excited for at some point in the next couple hours for this to be officially announced.
Better be.
And then
I better wake up to this. Hey, I gotta fucking. Yeah, anyway, I better fucking wake up to this being done. I
think so. But I am bummed to lose Batum. I would be bummed to trade away B-ball. We'll have to come up with a different nickname for Paul George because he's definitely not B-ball Paul. That's not what he does. If he doesn't play, if he doesn't show up to the meeting, I was thinking AWOL Paul. We can work on it. But it's an exciting time where the Sixers might end up with a guy who decides to come here, who wants to come to Philadelphia. It wasn't his first choice.
Or second, or maybe even third.
But it was a choice he made nonetheless.
It seemed like Clippers were 1.
Yeah.
Golden State was 2.
Uh-huh. Nick?
By the way, I was worried that or Magic, like we were going to do a podcast tonight where he chose the Magic.
That would have been tough. It would have been tough to lose out to the Magic. I do love these
No
Magics.
state tax, no pressure, warm weather. I was like, fuck, this could happen.
Pretty good.
Yeah. It better happen tonight or I'm going to get worried.
I mean, Maxey, PG, Embiid with 4 first-round picks to trade. That's legitimate. That's really, really legitimate. And I'm excited to see where they go from here, who comes back, who they get. And to talk myself into it once again.
Yes, we're back, baby. Unless they fuck it up and don't get Paul George. You got to get Paul George. Please don't fuck this up. For the life of me, if they fuck this up. There's nowhere else for him to go, Daryl. You would have to really fuck up this meeting tonight to not get him. He would literally have to go back to the Clippers crying on his fucking hands and knees at this point.
Paul George signs in Barcelona.
Maybe he takes the Chinese max contract that James Harden passed up.
Yeah, that could have been it.
Yeah.
Maybe those kids are still sitting there waiting to hear.
You never know.
Oh, all somebody in the chat said, I should have said it. Terquavion Smith. I'm going to miss him.
Yeah.
He was cool. But he could still come back on a different two-way. Who knows? We'll see. But probably not. More new guys to fall in love with at the two-way spot. We didn't even talk. You and me didn't even get to talk about the draft.
No,
we'll
we
talk
didn't.
about it when we get to summer league.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
A fun off season ahead of us.
Yep. We're back, baby. We're back. Oh, please sign Paul George. Okay, we will. We'll talk to you next time. I think we're here Wednesday night late. We're going to. You'd be excited about this. I'm going to see. So Jack Fritz, for his Phillies podcast, High Hopes, they're having a night at the Wilmington Blue Rocks to go see Aiden Smith play. Aiden Smith is visiting. I think he's in High A or something now. So I'm going to go see
Aiden Miller?
Aiden Miller, rather. Yeah, I'm sorry. Aiden Miller is going to play. And we're going to go see, I'm going to go to that game, and then afterwards we'll do the pod. So I'll tell you how Aiden Miller
That's very fun.
looked.
He's awesome, dude. He's really awesome. He's struggling a little bit at High A, but he'll get there. He just got promoted.
How old is he? What's he, 20?
I think he's 20.
Yeah.
He's awesome, dude.
All right. We'll talk to you Wednesday night. Please sign him tonight. Don't fuck it up. All right. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, in my champion shirt, which I failed to mention, like face.